Hello, everyone. Welcome to another recording of the African Technology Authors and Speakers Forum. I say this every time. Our aim is to encourage, especially young people in Africa, to get on stage, be part of panels, speak at conferences, but also grow as a speaker at your internal company meetings and blog, write, contact newspapers. Your voice needs to be heard. And I've got a wonderful guest on the recording today, and that's Boitumelo Mahlaba. She's a senior business analyst, a fintech innovator, and an AI ethics advocate. Now, that last part is my favorite, given the work that I'm doing. But Tumi is a seasoned banking professional. She's working currently for Rand Merchant Bank here in South Africa, part of the First Rand Group. However, she's speaking not on behalf of the group, but in her own personal capacity. She's worked at the likes of ABSA, another big bank here in South Africa, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, financial services like crazy to me. And then your master's degree, MPhil research focused on ethical implementation of AI in business process management. I wish we can do 7 recordings just on that. But to me, in any case, welcome. I will never do a good job in introducing somebody else. So given what I've just said, if you could just tell the audience a bit more about yourself as well.
Thank you so much, Johan. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this platform. My name is Boitumelo Mahlaba. I'm a senior business analyst, as mentioned, at Rand Merchant Bank. I'm basically responsible for just being that middle person between tech and business. So going into the gist of analyzing and solutioning and implementation. So, when you touched on AI, it's a very, very sensitive topic to me because there's just so many words being thrown around and not really understanding what that impact is. So I think for me, being that advocate, being that the middle person and helping people understand and unpack what this means from a technology, and from a business point of view is something that I'm really passionate about and that I try to apply in everything that I do, particularly in my area of work.
And I think it's a difficult job, this intersection between tech and business. And I've seen it in my career. I mean, business wants stuff that tech can't do. And tech sometimes want to do stuff that business doesn't want or need, the techies and the execs. And so you're a translator amongst many other things. And I think that towing the line with corporate politics is probably a challenge, but you need to be skilled to do that, to me. I want to ask you about, obviously, we're talking about writing and speaking now. For everyone listening, yes, there's a lot of conference speaking stuff we speak about. There's a lot of writing for newspaper stuff. But speaking and articulation is a skill we use in our relationships with our family, with our children, at work, with friends. The ability to speak, to convince. Now, at work, you might want to convince your boss that you need budget for something. You need to convince your colleagues to rally them to. So let's do a bit of the speaking stuff first, to me. It's, again, and I don't know if you've spoken at conferences, you probably have, big or small, doesn't matter, but also articulation in a business or a private context. Give us some of your thoughts there, because people struggle to explain themselves, especially because the case with you and with myself is English is our second language. It's a challenge sometimes.
So what works for me, Johan, is preparation, right? Even the best speakers in the world prepare. So if you know that you struggle when it comes to public speaking, spend a couple of days, spend a couple of hours, make notes, brainstorm, and really on paper, try and articulate what it is, the message that you want to get across. And I mean, as they used to teach us in school as well, that practice, practice, practice. And the little forums that you sit in, whether it be a meeting, when you're sitting in meetings, speak up, ask questions, interact with confidence. That's where you actually build up this momentum of communicating and speaking up and being able to articulate yourself. And the key also in learning to use the right words is reading. That's something that you can't take away. It's critical that people read, whether it be a newspaper, whether it be a book, but learn new words, and use those words in those forums that you get invited to. Like you said earlier on, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a big forum. Start small, whether you're speaking at a family function, you're sitting around the dinner table, and relating with people. That is part of communication, and that builds up the confidence as you progress.
Mm. I like what you
Yeah.
said, especially about reading to me, because I must tell you, I was an avid reader, but I only really started reading after high school when I was a student. And then
Mm,
I discovered the joy of reading. And
mm,
these days, I think most of us struggle with the time. So we might do audiobooks
mm,
or we read AI summaries on books, but it's so much fun if we sit down to read.
mm,
And what I did, I remember when I was studying in the 1990s, because the tech wasn't there yet. Whenever I discovered a
mm.
word in my textbook that I didn't know, an
Yeah,
English word, I would go to,
yeah,
I actually had a thick
yeah,
dictionary and go look
yeah.
for. These days, it's so easy. I mean, you just double click on the
Mm.
word and
Yeah.
Google explain it or whatever. But there's there will be words you don't understand. Don't be
Mm,
lazy. Read as
mm,
much as you can because it grows your vocabulary, especially in your second language. And then the other thing I think is confidence. And I think because people have different personalities, some find it easy, they're extroverts. I've always been an introvert. I never spoke at family events. I almost never speak in meetings until maybe at the end. But how do you, especially if maybe if you've grown up having learned that your voice doesn't really count, even if it's your perception. Now you're sitting in this corporate environment. And I think because the biggest fear is what if they laugh at me? What if they think I'm stupid? What if I don't know what I'm speaking about? It's almost get over yourself. Maybe in your career, as that you struggle in the beginning, maybe you didn't, but then to learn how to put your hand up, how to stand up and to say because you have something to contribute. What's your journey been from a confidence point of view?
With regards to public speaking, I would say, I mean, back to your point, I mean, being a black young girl, I'm not saying everyone, but majority of females, as you mentioned, are often sometimes told to shush, you talk too much, don't talk, don't speak up, only speak when you've been spoken to. But I think that was just one of the few that grew up with a mom who always encouraged me to speak up at family functions, to participate in public speaking, etc. So that helped me build my confidence when it comes to standing in podiums. But it doesn't take away the fact that I'm really a shy person. So I would rather sit in my little corner and listen to others speak. So what has really helped me navigate that is really just taking the opportunities when they are presented to you. So if maybe your boss comes and asks you to present XYZ at a certain forum, go with it. It's an opportunity for you to actually get over the hurdle or the fear of the public speaking. And if you know that you are not great at it, the mirror is there for you. Practice, prepare what it is that you want to communicate, why, the intention of this message, and how you intend on delivering. So, and I would always say that nothing beats preparation. And back to your point earlier, Johan, when you spoke about the words that you don't know, if there's a word you don't know, Google, understand what it means, put it in your presentation. I mean, such little nuances really play a major, has a major impact in how you actually get your message across. So there is no such thing as a perfect speaker. Those perfect speakers that you see out there, go and do a lot of work before they stand on that podium, before they sit on those forums, because they know that, nothing beats preparation ultimately.
Yes, and I think
Yeah,
for me, speakers and writers are not born; they are made. It's not a
absolutely.
talent, or it's not a gift; it's a skill. And
Yeah,
to your point, those seemingly perfect speakers, because there are some amazing ones out there, especially on YouTube.
yeah,
They've probably been doing it for 20 years, 30 years. If you see their videos of when they started, you will probably laugh. But it's a growing experience. The other thing you mentioned that I like is start at work. Small
mm,
presentation to the group, to your boss, to the manco, to your leadership team. That's what practice, practice, practice. Um, what about
absolutely.
what about nerves? Because I've been doing this professionally for a long time, and the nerves and the dry mouth and the perspiration never goes away. You get better at it, But I mean, if you know tomorrow you need to present to your bosses, because that's difficult. I mean, I'd rather present to an audience of people I don't know and I'll never see again. But if it's my peers, my bosses and others, I really get nervous. How do you manage those nerves? Do you have relaxing exercises, breathing maybe, or do you just go with the flow? What works for you?
So I always say if you're not nervous, then there's something wrong. Like you should always be nervous. Not always, but some people don't. But I always say you should be worried. I worry if I'm not nervous before a presentation or speaking in front of people. But how I get over that, I use that nerve, that those nerves as a catalyst to just pump myself up prior to every presentation. But breathing exercises as well. I mean, speak positively about yourself. The power of the words. I always say that your words are quite powerful and they have such an influence in how you present yourself and also come across. So there's that correlation with the mind, the tongue and the mind. So hype yourself up, speak positive words and always have the positive outcome in mind, have a positive end in mind. And that sort of shifts the narrative a bit for me when I go in and do these presentations. And I don't expect perfection, right? You are going to have some glitches every now and again during your presentation, but it's quickly getting over those and just knowing that, I mean, everybody's there to learn. And only you would know if you've made a mistake, right? After all, it's your presentation. The audience doesn't necessarily know. So just going in with the confidence, with that message that you're wanting to relay to your audience, and knowing that if you do make that glitch, it's only you that knows. Oftentimes, they don't know. So it's how you come back. It's always a comeback from that glitch that you make during your presentation.
I really like what you're saying because I'm very critical of myself, like I guess most of us. And when I watch if they recorded my talk and I watch it, I always try to watch it to see that I make enough eye contact, was my tone of voice correct, to learn from it. But I also find it horrible to listen to myself because my voice doesn't sound the way it sounds in my head. And then I see 55 mistakes I've made, but no one in the audience noticed it, probably. And
Exactly.
slide, or if I didn't cover enough on the slide, they're there for an impression. And I also like what you say about a positive impact. People come to listen to you to be impressed, to be inspired, to learn something. The nitty gritties of your talk, they don't care because they don't know.
No.
When I
Exactly.
realized that, it made me relax. So I can screw it up a little bit as long as I get to the main message,
Yeah.
What about slides? Because some people over engineer their slides. Now it's difficult. I mean, depending on your audience. And so if you do it for work, you probably have to have very complex slides. If it's a keynote, it's probably less complex. So what I'm asking you is, my policy is I never look at my slide deck on the day of my talk. A lot of people say they have to because it helps them to be finally prepared. I don't do it because I'm so tempted to criticize my slides and to change stuff. And the more I change it, the more nervous I get and the quicker the time is going. Now, people have different styles. What is kind of your process that day before the talk? Do you also not look at it, or is it important? Because there's no right or wrong here. Was it important for you to really go through the slides again before you speak?
I think back to your point, Johan, just over analyzing, analysis paralysis, I would say, really does paralyze you to a certain extent. So I think what helps is just making key points that you want to ensure that are covered during that presentation that you want to make, because you're not going to go through everything ultimately. Like most of the time, we never actually go through every single slide. So the key points, make notes of the key points, whether it be on a sticky note or on your iPhone or whatever the case is, and make sure that you cover those key points that you wanted to address during that session. That for me works. I think you tend to lose your audience a lot if you're going to be regurgitating everything that they can go in and read for themselves. So highlighting what the key points are, and also post every session, you send out the slides for them. It's either you send it before the meeting or send it after the meeting so they can go in and peruse for themselves. But the key point here is just connecting with your stakeholders and with your audience. And you do that through proper eye contact and communication. It's a conversation, right? It's just a different kind of conversation, a more formal conversation, I would put it.
You're right. And there's certain
Yeah.
things, to be to your point, that's human nature, whether we are in our living room or at a restaurant or in the boardroom. I want to feel a certain warmth from you. I want you to look at me. I want you to sometimes even lean into the room and talk to me, capture me, convince me, um, show enthusiasm. That's sometimes,
Yeah.
especially when you're nervous, I find I struggle with. But
Yeah.
I think people don't always remember all the stuff we said in the talk. They remember the impression and the final slide, which is maybe the call to action or whatever it is, you know. I want to just pivot to writing. Now, this is all still communicating. I
Mm,
find I find writing easier because I can rewrite it 100 times. Where with
mm,
speaking, if you screw it up, or if you think you screw it up on the day, it's done. Where my
mm,
draft, I can keep on
mm,
changing. Do you, whether it's internal memos, position papers, or blogs or whatever, do you find it comes naturally, or do you? Because I don't find it comes naturally. It's a struggle for me. It's a
mm,
procrastination thing, and I deal with every time I write. I deal with a feeling of I'm not worth it, and people won't read it, and then I have to
mm,
get over. It never goes away ever.
mm.
Your processes may be different. What is that? How do you actually, when you have that blank screen and you have to start typing, what is the process like for you?
So what I've learned, I used to do the same. I have to say, before I went in and started typing, I'd always be critical of myself, not knowing which words to write or even how to begin writing the sentence. But I think what really has helped me is just to pour my heart out. Write like you are having a conversation with your mom or your friend. And then just going back then, if it has to be a formal business memo, whatever the case is, you go back and utilize the tools that we have. I mean, we have AI now. If you feel like you are terrible at articulating yourself in English or whatever the case might be, or your grammar is really bad, that's what we have those tools for. So you've got tools like ChatGPT. Yes, it's an AI tool, but I think oftentimes people tend to abuse it. But it's there to help you, you know, change those whatever notes that you're trying to make into a more constructive business terminology. And you can go in, I mean, and start using tools such as Grammarly. You also have Grammarly AI tools to help you navigate the insecurities of articulating yourself better on paper and on notes. So I think what helps me is just getting that cloud off and just going in and writing whatever it is, whatever message that I want to send out to the audience. And then maybe going back and just refining it using those tools. I mean, that's what the tools are there to help us with.
You're so right. The tools are not there to take your voice and write the article, but to your point, it's there to support you. I
Absolutely.
sometimes sometimes it's an email, especially if it's a difficult email to a client,
Mm,
or if it's a piece I'm writing. And I kind of, and what you said is so good, is that first draft. Just get it out. Just type, 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 type. Don't worry about spelling,
mm,
grammar, or flow. Just get the main thoughts out. And then I'll ask something like ChatGPT or Gemini, these two paragraphs, I don't know if the flow of my English is good enough. Can you redo it
mm,
for me?
mm,
Or can you maybe, I don't know if all the paragraphs are on the right kind of sequence. Is it really telling a story? Can you redo it for me?
mm.
Even my spelling, and for me to translate, I'm busy writing more and more in Afrikaans, and I've got friends who are using it for Zulu, Xhosa, and the like.
Yeah,
It's not perfect, but it is damn good. And so
absolutely.
if you find it's easier to write it in your native language and then to translate it, do
Yeah,
that. But use these
yeah,
tools. I'm also a big fan of Grammarly because I'm worried about my grammar and my spelling. It's brilliant.
yeah,
And then
absolutely. Yeah.
your process of writing, and there doesn't have to be a very specific one. But so, for instance, I
Mm,
write much better early in the morning than in the
mm,
evening. Some people write better in the
mm,
evening. Some people write in a coffee shop because they can't at work. But if you have, let's say, you've got 3 blog posts to write or 2 position
mm.
papers, is there a specific
Mm.
process, time of day, venue, those kind of things?
Definitely is. I prefer quiet spaces, away from distractions. So if it means me locking myself away for a good couple of hours, focusing on this piece of paper that I'm trying to get out, that really helps me a lot. And the times that are usually quiet for me, because I mean, we don't have that luxury of going away onto holidays or to the bush to do the writing. So what really helps is waking up in the early hours of the morning, when it's quiet and when there's no movement around, and that's when my mind is mostly alert, and I'm able to get it all out of the way without any distractions around. So my preference is definitely in the early hours of the morning to just get that piece of paper out. Yeah, that's what helps most.
And I think it's an experimentation. If you don't know what's the best time to write yet,
Mm,
do it in the mornings, evenings, do it at work, do it in the boardroom,
yeah,
but somewhere or another you'll find your zone. I love writing in
absolutely.
coffee shops, but obviously I've got my earphones on and I'm listening to classical music most of the time.
Mm,
A lot of people I speak to say they will never be able to write in a coffee shop because of all the movement and stuff.
yeah,
Everyone needs to find their own zone, but you have to
yeah.
experiment. As we conclude, to me, I mean, we've already touched on some of this, but what is the rallying call to young people in tech in South Africa, especially young ladies, to stand up, to get their message out there? Because you have experience, even if it's 2 years of work experience, maybe not 20. How do you speak in meetings? How do you start writing? Just maybe some encouraging words, because the people, young African ladies that I know, would rather
Mm,
look to somebody like you than to me to inspire them because they say we can be like her. Just some concluding remarks
mm.
to encourage them.
Thank you so much for that, Johan. I mean, funny you should touch on that. I think I spoke to one of the young ladies not so long ago that I'm mentoring as well, and she did highlight this challenge that she has of speaking up in public, and it's purely because of the background, right? She was told that she's young, that not that her voice doesn't matter, but it's the elders that have the last word. So it's really being intentional about unlearning all these negative habits that you've learned along the years. That's the first point that you need to just unlearning that and being intentional about taking the steps to move forward in learning the new habits of speaking up, right? Whether it be getting a coach, whether it be getting a mentor that will guide you in this journey that you are partaking on, you have to be intentional about it. And I would also encourage young girls to read. Please read. ChatGPT is not there to do your work for you. We require critical thinkers, right? You can't rely on ChatGPT to solve all your problems. And I think the third part is just that we need inclusivity in AI, right? We can't be relying on our Western counterparts to be solving our own African challenges. We need to be intentional about changing that narrative. And that means having the right people around the table to help us in solutioning for these challenges that we have as a country. So I would say young girls need to really start raising their hands and stepping forward and just being bold. We don't expect perfection. We don't want perfect people. We're all on this learning journey together. And we can only really achieve what we need to achieve as a collective. So I would really just encourage girls just to build your confidence. Come forward when you do have the opportunity to speak up in a meeting, to speak up at forums. Take those opportunities because we need a lot of diversity in those forums. Yeah, that would be the message for me out there.
It's perfect, and it's the golden nuggets and the wisdom in there is amazing. Also, to me, you've got a wonderful way of speaking very calmly and articulately, and again, that comes through experience. But I said it to somebody else in the recording the other day, and you don't often find it. Like, I can just listen, just keep on speaking. I'll listen. I'll take notes. So well done. Thank you for your wisdom, for your experience, for also taking the time to be here. I'm sure that there will
Okay.
be many people, especially young ladies out there, who will take this message and rise to the occasion. So to me, with thanks from my heart to you, thank you for your time. Thanks for taking the
Thank
opportunity.
you. Thank you so much, Johan.